The morning sun glinted off the wet asphalt of Maple Street, reflecting in the windshield of Officer Daniel Hawthorne's cruiser as he idled at the intersection. He watched her before he even thought. A black woman, early 30s, neatly dressed in a Courier uniform, balancing a stack of parcels with precise care. Her movements were calm, deliberate, yet to Hawthorne they were suspicious. "Ma'am," he barked, stepping out before she even reached the sidewalk. "Hold it, right there. What's in the packages?" She froze mid-step, fingers clutching the box, eyes wide. "Delivery," she said, voice steady but sharp. "I'm just doing my job." "Don't lie to me," he snapped. "I know people like you. You think you can just walk around, doing whatever you want." She shook her head slowly, measuring her words. "Sir, I have every right to be here. I work for Maple Express. These are deliveries for paying customers." Hawthorne's lips curled into a sneer. "Yeah, right. I've seen your type before. You're gonna need to come with me." She felt the world tilt, the weight of his badge, the authority he wielded like a weapon. Pedestrians paused, their faces a blur. Her pulse pounded. Something inside her tightened, a mix of fear and fury. "You think I'm scared of you?" she whispered, not loud, but deliberate, like a spark in a dry forest. He frowned. "You should be." Then she did something that made him freeze, a quiet motion that seemed meaningless, almost casual, but it was a declaration. And before he could react, she walked past, leaving him standing there, fuming, powerless in the moment, unaware of the empire she would reveal and the reckoning that would follow. The cruiser's siren wailed faintly in the distance, but she disappeared down the street, parcels in hand, and the officer felt the first pangs of humiliation he didn't yet understand. Jasmine Harper balanced the parcels carefully in her arms, her courier bag slung diagonally across her chest. The morning light hit Maple Street with a harsh glare, glinting off car windshields and the wet asphalt from last night's rain. She adjusted her grip on a heavier box, her shoes tapping lightly against the curb. From a corner of her eye, a police cruiser rolled slowly into view, tires splashing shallow puddles. The driver's gaze lingered, sharp and assessing, and she instinctively straightened her posture. "Ma'am," the officer barked, stepping out before she could even reach the sidewalk. The metal of his badge caught the sun, blindingly bright. "Hold it, right there. What's in the packages?" Jasmine froze mid-step. Fingers clutched the cardboard tightly. "Delivery," she said, voice firm despite the sudden tension. "I'm just doing my job." "Don't lie to me," he snapped, his tone clipped, harsh. "I know people like you. You think you can just walk around, doing whatever you want." The words hit like a slap, and she felt the air constrict. Her pulse picked up, but she didn't let it show. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, measuring him, measuring her response. "Sir, I have every right to be here. These are deliveries for paying customers." "Maple Express," she added, enunciating carefully. His sneer was slow, deliberate. "Yeah, right. I've seen your type before. You're gonna need to come with me." Her jaw tightened. People on the sidewalks paused, curious or indifferent, their faces blurred in her vision, a mixture of fear, avoidance, and discomfort. She could hear the faint rumble of other traffic, the distant honk of impatient drivers, the scrape of her own sneakers against wet concrete. "You think I'm scared of you?" she whispered, low, steady but deliberate, like a spark in dry wood. He frowned. "You should be," he said, stepping closer. She made a small, casual motion, almost imperceptible, but it was deliberate, a silent challenge. She sidestepped slightly, parcel still in hand, moving past him. His eyes widened, and he barked something indistinct, but she didn't stop. The street seemed to hold its breath. Pedestrians shuffled away, avoiding confrontation, while Jasmine's heart pounded in her ears. She walked on, each step deliberate, calm, yet defiant. The cruiser idled behind her, siren off but lights flicking faintly, a silent threat. Hawthorne's frown deepened. He knew he'd been bested in some unspoken way, though he didn't yet understand how, or by whom. The woman walking past him was more than a courier. She was a force, a presence that carried weight he could not measure, authority he could not recognize. By the time she disappeared around the corner, parcels in hand, the officer's chest heaved with frustration. A quiet, gnawing awareness settled in. This was not over. He had just glimpsed the first ripple of a reckoning he couldn't control. And on that street, under the harsh glare of early sunlight, the story was already beginning. Jasmine pushed open the glass door of Maple Express's main office, the faint scent of printer toner and coffee hitting her first. The receptionist glanced up, offering a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. Jasmine's fingers lingered on the strap of her Courier bag, knuckles whitening. "Morning," she said evenly, placing the parcels on the counter. Her supervisor, Elaine Carter, appeared from a side office, mid-40s, sharp suit, sharper eyes. "Jasmine," she greeted, but her tone carried a flicker of apprehension. "What happened out there?" Jasmine let out a quiet breath, dropping onto the nearest chair. "Officer Hawthorne. He stopped me again, said my deliveries were suspicious, told me to come with him, said I should be scared." Her voice was steady, but the edge of anger, of disbelief, cut through. Elaine's expression hardened. "Again? This is the third time this month, isn't it?" "Fourth," Jasmine corrected. "And this time there were people watching. Someone even recorded part of it." She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone, showing Elaine a short clip. Hawthorne's face, red with authority and arrogance, filled the screen. His words were clipped, threatening, almost absurdly theatrical in their aggression. Elaine's lips pressed together. I don't know why he's allowed to get away with this. I mean, we've filed complaints before. HR says they'll look into it." She exhaled sharply. "But nothing ever changes." Jasmine stared at her supervisor, calm but unrelenting. "Do you know how many times people like him get away with this? Do you know how many times they ruin someone's morning, their work, their life? And the worst part is the silence. Everyone looks, everyone sees, and nobody does anything." Elaine glanced down, tapping a pen against her desk. "People are uncomfortable. They don't want to get involved. Even here. Even at a company that's supposed to protect its employees. Uncomfortable doesn't stop the harassment," Jasmine said. She lowered her voice. "Fear doesn't stop the harassment, and neither will silence." Elaine looked at her, eyes flicking toward the door, as if she could sense the weight of unspoken scrutiny, office whispers waiting in the hallways. "You know you're braver than most." "I'm not brave," Jasmine said, shaking her head slowly. "I'm just awake." Her words hung in the air. Outside the window, a delivery van passed, its tires kicking up small sprays of water. The sound reminded Jasmine of the streets she navigated daily, the constant vigilance required to simply exist while doing her job. Elaine lowered her voice further. "You should be careful, Jasmine. If Hawthorne keeps targeting you, it could escalate. He's got friends in the precinct, people who'll cover for him." Jasmine leaned back in her chair, her gaze steady. "That's the thing about people like him. They think their badge gives them power. They think fear is a weapon. But the truth is, their power only exists because nobody challenges it. Once someone challenges it, they collapse under the weight of their own arrogance." A young assistant poked her head into the office, her expression nervous. "Miss Harper, did he?" "Stop," Jasmine said softly but firmly, not unkindly. "He won't find me today. Not here, not in this space." The assistant nodded, retreating silently, and the office seemed to breathe again, a fragile bubble of temporary safety. Elaine rubbed her temples. "It's exhausting, isn't it? Trying to work around people who think the rules don't apply to them. It's systemic." Jasmine's hands rested on her knees. "It's every day, everywhere. And it's not just him. It's the whispers that excuse him, the HR forms that gather dust, the casual jokes that normalize it. Every time someone looks the other way, it strengthens the system. And people like Hawthorne, they thrive on it." Elaine nodded slowly, a mixture of admiration and worry in her eyes. "So, what do we do?" Jasmine smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly. "We do what we've always done. Deliver the packages. Hold our heads high. Document everything. And we wait for the day the world catches up to them." The two women shared a long silence. Outside, a courier passed through the parking lot, parcels balanced expertly on her shoulder. Jasmine thought of all the deliveries she had made, each one a small assertion control, a tiny rebellion against a system designed to intimidate her. A ping from Jasmine's phone cut through the quiet. She opened it, eyes scanning the notifications. The clip from earlier had been shared online. Comments were pouring in hundreds and thousands, people recognizing injustice, calling out the harassment. The small tremor of collective awareness sent a shiver down her spine. Elaine leaned over, peering at the screen. This could go somewhere. It might actually go somewhere. Jasmine's lips pressed into a line. Or it could make things worse. People like Hawthorne don't take kindly to exposure. And their friends, their system, their hierarchy. Her eyes flicked to the ceiling, a half smile touching her lips. Let's just say we need to be ready. The office hum of printers and computers became a muted soundtrack to their conversation, grounding Jasmine in the safety of walls and fluorescent lights, contrasting sharply with the open street where authority could strike without warning. The contrast between inside and outside, control and chaos, safety and intimidation, made her pulse quicken. Elaine cleared her throat. Jasmine, do you think, if you own the company, people might start taking you seriously? Jasmine's eyebrows rose slightly. You mean, like they didn't see me before? Her voice was calm, precise. I've been delivering packages for years. But no, I don't think it changes how people like him see me, until they find out the truth, until the weight of their arrogance is measured against reality. The phone buzzed again. Another notification. Someone had tagged Hawthorne in the clip. Comments were turning critical, voices calling out abuse, calling out systemic failure. Jasmine felt a strange surge, a mixture of caution, anticipation, and resolve. She was awake. And now, the world was waking too. Elaine leaned back in her chair, exhaling. Well, let's make sure we're ready for whatever comes next. Jasmine nodded, standing, gathering her parcels. Her uniform felt heavier, but not from the weight of the boxes. It was a weight of authority she carried, quiet but undeniable. As she stepped toward the door, she knew the confrontation on the street was only the beginning. The whispers in the office, the indifference, the systemic protection of people like Hawthorne, they were part of the battle, and she was ready to fight it, one delivery, one documented incident, one revelation at a time. Her phone pinged again. The notifications weren't stopping. And somewhere out there, Officer Hawthorne was hearing his name more and more often, unaware of how quickly the tide was turning. Jasmine's phone buzzed incessantly as she stepped out of the office, parcels balanced on her arms. Each vibration felt heavier than the last. She stopped on the curb, momentarily shielding her eyes in the glare of the mid-morning sun, and opened the notifications. Her stomach dropped. The clip, the one someone had filmed during Hawthorne's harassment, was circulating like wildfire. Comments were flooding in, outrage, support, accusations. People were recognizing injustice, naming it, calling for accountability. A pedestrian nudged her lightly, whispering, "Hey, that video, that's you, right?" Jasmine nodded, careful not to break stride. "Yes," she said, voice steady calm. "I'm aware." The pedestrian's eyes widened. People are seeing it. Like, really seeing it. I know," Jasmine interrupted. She didn't want to discuss it here, in the open where anyone could hear. She adjusted the strap of her bag and walked on, the world suddenly smaller, more compressed, her pulse echoing in her ears. By the time she reached her next delivery stop, her phone had exploded with messages. Colleagues, friends, even distant family members. "Be careful," they typed. "This could escalate." Some sent screenshots of news outlets sharing the clip. Others tagged social media accounts of the local precinct. Inside the apartment building, she set down her parcels and exhaled. A young man waited by the door, holding a small tablet. "Miss Harper? Sorry, I didn't mean to bother you, but this video..." Jasmine knelt to place a package gently on the floor. "It's fine," she said, taking the device. She scrolled through the clip again. Hawthorne's face, flushed with authority and indignation, glared at her in the brief 30 seconds of footage. The words were unmistakable, the tone unmistakable. Threats, intimidation, racial bias. Captured forever in pixels. He didn't just see her. He dismissed, devalued, and weaponized her existence. And now, millions were watching. The young man hesitated. People are reacting, really reacting. Some are calling the precinct. Some are, thinking about suing. Jasmine's lips pressed together. Good. Let them think. Let them act. She stood, straightening her uniform. But we don't panic. We document. We prepare. That's the only power we have in moments like this. He blinked, awed. You're calm. I'd be... Jasmine gave a faint smile, almost imperceptible. Fear is useless when it's out in the open. What matters is control. Not of them, but of yourself. Always yourself. Back on the street, she moved briskly, completing deliveries while notifications continued pouring in. Every door she knocked on, every customer she handed a package to, felt like a small assertion of presence, a quiet defiance. People waved, smiled, sometimes nodded knowingly, as if recognizing the story they'd seen online. By midday, a small local news outlet had picked up the clip. A young reporter, her voice sharp but polite, delivered a brief segment. Video circulating online shows Officer Daniel Hawthorne allegedly harassing a courier on Maple Street this morning. Witnesses report that the officer stopped a woman without cause, questioning her deliveries and using intimidating language. The video has sparked widespread discussion about racial profiling and abuse of authority. Jasmine watched from a cafe window, earbuds in, absorbing every word. Her hand tightened on her phone. Hawthorne's name was trending. Comments ranged from outrage to disbelief, but the point was clear. The clip was no longer a private nuisance. It was public, undeniable, and viral. She leaned back, breathing slowly. The street hummed with life. Cars honking, children laughing, dogs barking, the faint hiss of nearby bus stopping. But it all seemed muted beneath the roar of awareness the clip had unleashed. Her phone buzzed again. A direct message from her assistant flashed on the screen. He's asking questions about you. The precinct. HR. They know it's you. Jasmine's eyes narrowed. Let them ask, she muttered under her breath. Let them realize the weight of their mistakes. But we proceed carefully, step by step. By the time she returned to Maple Express, the office atmosphere had shifted. Employees gathered around computers, watching the clip loop repeatedly, some murmuring, others whispering, others openly calling out Hawthorne's behavior. Elaine approached, her expression taut, but tinged with cautious excitement. This is huge. People are talking. We might finally get some traction. Jasmine nodded. It's a start, but the system is bigger than one viral video. Hawthorne isn't just an isolated case. He's a symptom, and the system protecting him? That's what we need to account for. Elaine sighed, running a hand through her hair. You make it sound exhausting. It is, Jasmine admitted, voice low but firm. But it's also necessary. Every person who turns away, every HR form ignored, every whisper that excuses it, it all builds a power for people like him. Exposure is the first step toward dismantling it. The office printer word, the sound stark in the tension-filled room. Jasmine glanced at her team. Everyone document everything. Be thorough. We're not just defending me. We're defending every courier, every worker, every person who's been dismissed, ignored, or harassed. A young courier raised a hand tentatively. Miss Harper, what if he retaliates? She met his gaze evenly. Then we're ready. That's why we're documenting. That's why we have evidence. That's why the world is watching now. And the world doesn't forget. Hours passed. By late afternoon, larger media outlets had shared the clip. Social media amplified the outrage, and hashtags targeting systemic harassment began trending. Comments questioned police accountability, demanded investigations, and praised Jasmine for standing her ground. Hawthorne's phone buzzed relentlessly in his cruiser. Messages from colleagues, supervisors, and friends rang in, some defensive, some cautionary, some mocking, but all signaling that the incident was no longer private. His sense of control, once absolute, wavered. At home, Jasmine finally set her phone down, exhaustion pressing against her bones. The weight of the day, the harassment, the documentation, the exposure, settled heavily, but there was a strange clarity in it. This was no longer just about fear or anger. It was about accountability. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the city streets. Outside her window, pedestrians moved, oblivious of the viral storm swirling in their midst. And somewhere, Officer Hawthorne was pacing his cruiser, realizing for the first time that his badge couldn't shield him from the consequences of his own arrogance. Jasmine exhaled, her hand brushing over her chest, feeling the steady beat of her own resolve. The clip had gone viral. Public scrutiny was real, relentless, and unavoidable. The world was beginning to see what she had always known. And in that exposure, there was a strange, quiet power. A notification pinged on her phone again. Another news outlet had covered the story. Another wave of comments. Another reminder that the fight wasn't over. But for the first time, it felt like the balance had shifted. She smiled faintly, a mix of fatigue and determination. The day had begun with fear, confrontation, and a heavy sense of danger. By eve, Jasmine returned to Maple Express the next morning, parcels in hand, the hum of fluorescent lights and the faint aroma of coffee greeting her like a fragile comfort. The office felt different, charged, almost electric. The clip had gone viral overnight, spreading far beyond the small city streets. The atmosphere was thick with curiosity, whispered speculation, and a newfound sense of attention. Elaine Carter met her at the entrance, her eyes wide but careful. "Jasmine, there's something you need to know. People are asking questions. Clients, vendors, even some local officials." Jasmine raised an eyebrow, setting her parcels on the counter. "Questions about me?" Elaine hesitated, chewing the inside of her cheek. "Yes, they're surprised. They didn't realize you were, the owner." Jasmine tilted her head slightly, letting the words settle between them. "Owner," she repeated softly, savoring the sting of incredulity in the room. She straightened, placing her hands on the desk. "Yes, Maple Express is mine." Elaine blinked. I mean, we all know you've been with the company a long time, but no one knew you actually ran it. They assumed." She waved vaguely at the office. "Delivery staff, hard-working courier, not executive level, not someone with influence. Assumptions," Jasmine said, voice calm but cutting, "are how people like Hawthorne justify their bias. They see a uniform, a face, a skin color, and they assign a story. They don't see reality. They see a narrative that makes them comfortable, and they act within that false story." Elaine nodded slowly. "And now, Jasmine said, picking up her parcels again, "they're going to find out the truth. Slowly, deliberately. They're going to realize that the person they dismissed, belittled, or harassed is someone with authority, with responsibility, with reach." Across the office, murmurs began as colleagues leaned over monitors, talking in hushed tones. Some were replaying the clip again. Some were speculating on Jasmine's role. The revelation hung in the air, palpable, changing the dynamics subtly but irrevocably. A junior employee approached, nervous, holding a printed memo. "Miss Harper, I heard about the ownership. Is it true? You run the company?" "Yes," Jasmine said simply, placing a parcel on a nearby desk. "I built it, and every person here has contributed to its growth. That's why the harassment on the street isn't just personal. It's an attack on everyone who works here." The employee nodded, relief and admiration flickering across his face. "We will support you." "Good," Jasmine replied, her voice calm but authoritative, "because the work we do isn't just about deliveries. It's about integrity. It's about standing for something beyond ourselves. And it's about holding people accountable regardless of their badge or perceived authority." Elaine looked at her, eyes sharp. "You've always been calm under pressure. But now it's different. People are talking, and Hawthorne, he's hearing about you, isn't he?" Jasmine's lips curved faintly. "He's realizing that he underestimated me, that his assumptions, his arrogance, his sense of unchecked authority, it won't shield him forever. And the system that protects him? It's fragile when exposed to scrutiny." The office phones began to ring more frequently. Clients calling in, vendors checking delivery schedules, reporters seeking statements. Each call was a subtle reminder that the balance of power was shifting. A mid-level manager whispered to a colleague, just audibly enough for Jasmine to hear, "I can't believe she's the owner. She's always been so quiet, unassuming. You wouldn't guess." Jasmine's eyes swept across the office, calm but penetrating. Quiet doesn't mean powerless. Unassuming doesn't mean irrelevant. And being underestimated? That's the greatest advantage someone like me can have. People reveal their true selves when they think they hold the upper hand. Elaine's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. "It's Hawthorne," he called. "Wants to know more about the company. About you. He says he's concerned about the viral video." Jasmine's expression remained composed, almost neutral. "Concerned or threatened?" she asked softly. Elaine hesitated. I think he's realizing he misjudged the situation." "Exactly," Jasmine said. She placed her parcels back on the counter. "And now the narrative is changing. The people who dismissed me, who harassed me, who assumed I was powerless, they're starting to see reality. And reality is uncomfortable for those who abuse their power." One of the senior couriers approached, shaking slightly. "Miss Harper, with everything going on, what should we do?" "Continue working," Jasmine said, voice calm but firm. "Document everything. Maintain professionalism. The world is watching now, and every interaction, every delivery, every conversation builds our case, our credibility, and our integrity. Do not give anyone, especially him, the excuse to dismiss you." The senior courier nodded, eyes wide but determined. "Yes, Miss Harper." The office atmosphere shifted further. The viral video, her ownership revelation, the whispers of power. It created a subtle tremor of change. People who had treated Jasmine casually now regarded her with caution, respect, and curiosity. Elaine approached again, leaning slightly over counter. "Jasmine, you think he'll actually come here?" "Hawthorne." "Perhaps," Jasmine said. Her eyes glinted faintly. "And if he does, he'll learn something important. Authority does not equate to invincibility. Assumptions do not equate to reality. And badges only have meaning when people let them." A young assistant peeked around the corner, hesitating. "Miss Harper, should we maybe alert security? In case he comes in?" Jasmine considered her for a moment, then shook her head. "No, let him come. Let him realize slowly, deliberately, that the person he thought was powerless wields influence he cannot imagine. The revelation itself is the first strike." Elaine exhaled, a mixture of admiration and unease. "You make it sound so effortless." "Effortless isn't the word," Jasmine said softly, arranging the parcels in neat rows. "It's calculated, it's deliberate, and it's long overdue. For people like him to see that their arrogance has consequences." The office phones rang again. A news alert popped on the main monitor. "Viral video sparks debate over police harassment. Maple Express owner responds." The headline froze the room for a heartbeat. Jasmine glanced at it, calm, collected. "Yes, let them see. Let them watch. Let them think they know the story. And then they'll learn the rest." The office settled into a tense rhythm, the murmur of conversation and ringing phones forming a backdrop to a quiet but palpable power shift. Every glance at her, every whisper, every reassessment of assumptions reinforced reality. Jasmine Harper was not what Hawthorne, or anyone else, had expected, and for the first time, Hawthorne would have to reckon with it. Assman entered the law office briskly, the polished floors reflecting her steady stride. The smell of leather-bound books and strong coffee hit her instantly, grounding her in a world where rules and documentation mattered more than street bravado. She set her parcels aside, though this time they felt almost symbolic, a reminder of the world she still had to navigate outside the polished walls. Her attorney, Marcus Ellison, a mid-40s African-American man with a meticulous suit and a reputation for fierce advocacy, rose from his chair. "Jasmine," he greeted, shaking her hand firmly. "I've been reviewing everything, the video, the messages, the prior complaints filed with HR. It's extensive, but that also makes it powerful. We're not just fighting one officer. We're exposing a pattern." Jasmine leaned back in the chair, her posture calm but precise. I don't want revenge, Marcus. I want accountability. I want a system that doesn't let people like Hawthorne intimidate everyone they encounter, then walk away as if nothing happened. Marcus nodded, opening his laptop. Exactly. And the first step is documentation. Witnesses, timestamps, social media evidence. We build a timeline, a chain that shows repeated harassment, institutional negligence, and his abuse of authority. That way, when it reaches a court or the media, it's airtight. Jasmine's fingers drummed lightly on the table. I've documented everything. Even the small interactions, the smirks, the dismissive comments, the indirect threats. Every courier who witnessed him is willing to come forward. But I want to be careful. He's not the only one who can be reckless. Precisely, Marcus said. He tapped on the laptop, bringing up folders and files. HR's reports, internal complaints. They'll try to claim there's no systemic issue. They'll argue procedure was followed. But when we overlay your documentation, the viral clip witnesses, the repetitive incidents, we can show the narrative is consistent, deliberate, and undeniable. Jasmine leaned forward, voice steady but sharp. And the public? Media attention can be a double-edged sword. I don't want to paint me as angry or vindictive. I want the truth to speak for itself. Marcus smiled faintly. Truth always finds a way, and your composure strengthens it. People like Hawthorne rely on spectacle, fear, aggression. You've already turned the first spectacle into a tool for accountability. She exhaled slowly. Good. Let's make sure the next steps are deliberate. No surprises. Marcus nodded, tapping a few keys. We're filing a formal complaint with the Internal Affairs Division. I'll draft a civil notice for harassment, intimidation, and racial profiling. The viral clip will be included as evidence. And this is crucial. We'll request interviews from any bystanders or colleagues who witnessed the harassment. Every voice counts. Jasmine's gaze fixed on the laptop screen. I want to make it clear that this isn't just about me. It's about the couriers. It's about employees who fear speaking up. It's about the message this sends to everyone in this city who thinks their badge gives them unchecked power. Marcus leaned back, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. And that's why we'll frame it as systemic, not isolated. Hawthorne is just the beginning. He's a visible face of a much larger pattern. Your ownership of Maple Express strengthens the credibility. You're not a passive victim. You're an active, informed professional who refuses to be silenced. The office door opened, and a young paralegal stepped in hesitantly. Marcus, the precinct called. They want to meet with Jasmine. They said it's to clarify the situation. Jasmine didn't flinch. Clarify the situation or intimidate me? She asked softly. Marcus chuckled, though his expression was serious. Probably both, but we're prepared. Any conversation, any meeting, any request will be documented. No unguarded moments. We play it smart. Jasmine's eyes narrowed. Smart, always smart, not reactive. They spend the next hour reviewing timelines, emails, video clips, and witness statements. Every instance of Hawthorne's harassment was mapped, cross-referenced, and backed by evidence. Every HR complaint he'd previously ignored or dismissed was cataloged. Marcus paused, looking up from his laptop. Jasmine, this isn't just a civil case. If it handled correctly, it could expose larger negligence within the department. Other officers, supervisors, even HR personnel who allowed this to continue, they could be implicated, not for revenge, but for accountability. Jasmine exhaled. I understand, but I'm not here to destroy anyone. I'm here to make sure no one else experiences what I did. No one else is dismissed or intimidated because someone's badge feels bigger than the law. Marcus nodded. Exactly. And your composure strengthens the case. You've already turned fear into leverage. Every interaction you've had, every documented harassment, every calm delivery in the face of intimidation, it's evidence that people are accountable for their actions, whether they want to be or not. A notification buzzed on Jasmine's phone. She glanced at it. Another viral post, this one shared by a local news station. Courier harassed by officer sparks citywide debate on policing and accountability. She showed it to Marcus. The public is paying attention, but we can't let the attention dictate the pace. This has to be measured, deliberate, strategic. Marcus nodded, typing notes into the case file. Agreed. And when we move forward, it's critical that Hawthorne knows the reach of this case. He's not acting in isolation. We'll involve witnesses, internal documentation, public scrutiny, and media oversight. He'll realize the consequences of his actions, not through spectacle, but through process. Jasmine stood, collecting her parcels. Her movements were calm, deliberate, almost ceremonial. I want this done right. Every detail accounted for. Every witness protected. Every step measured. We can't rely on chaos to expose injustice. It has to be structured, legal, undeniable, and precise. Marcus leaned back, eyes narrowing slightly. Then we proceed. Carefully, strategically. The viral clip is a catalyst, not the conclusion. We're building a case that can't be ignored. Jasmine nodded. And while we do that, she looked out the office window toward the busy streets below. We continue delivering. We maintain control of our lives, our work, our dignity. They can try to intimidate us, but they can't dictate who we are. Not anymore. Marcus smiled faintly, but his eyes were serious. I like your strategy. Calm, deliberate, unassailable. Hours passed. Jasmine left the office, walking the familiar streets with parcels balanced expertly on her arms. She noticed the glances, the curiosity, the respect, the subtle acknowledgement of her presence. Every delivery was now a small act of defiance. Every interaction a quiet assertion of agency. From the corner of her eye, a patrol car passed, Hawthorne inside, his expression tight, his hands gripping the steering wheel. He glanced at her for a brief moment, recognition flashing across his face. But this time, there was caution in his movements, a hesitation he hadn't shown before. Jasmine exhaled slowly, steadying herself. The streets were the same, the city buzzing with life, but the balance had shifted, imperceptibly yet irreversibly. She had begun the legal maneuvering, documented every harassment, and exposed a systemic weakness in his unchecked authority. By morning, the city streets seemed smaller, somehow contained, as if the viral clip had shrunk the space around Jasmine Harper. Every passerby, every driver, every pedestrian carried fragments of awareness. Some whispered her name. Others nodded subtly as she passed. The balance of power had shifted in ways she could feel, though it was still delicate. Inside Maple Express, the office buzzed with energy and tension. Phones rang incessantly. Emails piled up, and screens displayed repeated loops of the video. Elaine Carter approached Jasmine's desk. Her expression a mixture of concern and excitement. Jasmine, it's everywhere. Local news, social media, blogs. People are actually paying attention. They're talking about systemic harassment, racial profiling, your story. Jasmine adjusted a stack of parcels, her gaze calm but alert. Good, she said. But attention isn't accountability. It's awareness. The two aren't the same. A young courier leaned over from a nearby desk, eyes wide. Miss Harper, people are sharing it all over, even outside the city. It's trending. Jasmine nodded. Then it's time to control the narrative. Every delivery, every interaction, every comment counts. We ensure the story we tell is the one grounded in fact, not speculation. A chime from her phone drew her attention. A local news alert had popped up. Courier harassed by Officer Sparks' outrage. Community demands accountability. She tapped the notification, reading through the comments, the shares, the reactions. Some were angry, some were supportive, some were horrified. And in every post, Hawthorne's arrogance was unmistakably visible, now contrasted by the growing weight of public scrutiny. Elaine glanced over her shoulder. Do you think he realizes what's happening? He does, Jasmine said calmly. He's hearing his name more and more. People are connecting the dots, harassment, institutional protection, systemic bias. And he's starting to panic, even if he won't admit it yet. Across the office, phones rang constantly. One of the assistants picked up a call, whispering hurriedly into the receiver. Yes, she's aware. Yes, we can provide documentation. Jasmine stood, placing her parcels on a counter, her voice cutting through the noise. Document everything. Every call, every interaction. The world is watching, and we can't afford a single misstep. We maintain professionalism. We maintain composure. And we maintain control of the narrative. Elaine nodded, pacing. This is overwhelming. People are calling clients, suppliers, reporters. Even city officials are asking questions. Jasmine let out a soft breath. Good. Let them ask. Let them be curious. But no speculation. Facts only. Every word, every gesture, every recorded action builds credibility. Meanwhile, somewhere across town, Officer Daniel Hawthorne sat in the back of the precinct break room, scrolling through social media on a government-issued tablet. His face, usually flushed with authority and bravado, was tight with frustration. The clip was everywhere, looped, shared, analyzed. Comments dissected his tone, his words, his assumptions. Public scrutiny had found him, and it was relentless. One colleague glanced over his shoulder. Danny, people are talking. Really talking. About the clip. About you. Hawthorne's fingers tapped the screen nervously. It's just one video. One minor interaction. People blow things out of proportion. They're saying it's harassment. Profiling. Systemic. It's trending. City council, news sites. Everyone's watching. He leaned back, chest tightening. They don't know the full story. They don't understand context. Doesn't matter. The video exists. They see what they see, the colleague replied cautiously. Hawthorne's jaw clenched. Then we handle it. Quietly. Internal review. Talk to HR. Spin it. His colleague nodded, uncomfortable. Right, but people are already forming opinions. Public opinion, it's powerful. Hawthorne exhaled sharply, staring at the tablet. A first taste of real vulnerability settling in. For years, his badge had been armor. Now it felt thin, fragile, inadequate. Back at Maple Express, Jasmine reviewed her phone again. Another news outlet had published a short article. Courier who stood up to officer becomes symbol of accountability. The comments section buzzed with both support and outrage, but the overall trend was clear. People were paying attention, and the narrative was shifting. Elaine tapped Jasmine's shoulder. They're asking for statements. You might need to do an interview. Jasmine considered for a moment, then nodded. Yes, but controlled. Facts only. No emotion beyond what's necessary to convey reality. We don't give them spectacle. We give them truth. A junior courier approached nervously. Miss Harper, people outside, they're asking if they can support you. The company, donations, public statements. Jasmine smiled faintly. We'll channel the support strategically. Every action, every word, every public engagement must align with the reality of the situation. No exaggeration, no theatrics. Authenticity is stronger than spectacle. Hours passed. Callers, emails, and messages continued to flood in. The office became a hub of controlled chaos. Staff moving with deliberate precision, documenting every interaction, filing every report, and preparing statements for media inquiries. By late afternoon, a local reporter arrived in person, camera crew in tow. Miss Harper, she began, voice professional but curious. Would you like to make a statement regarding the incident with Officer Hawthorne? Jasmine adjusted her posture, her voice calm but firm. I do. The video shows harassment and intimidation. It shows bias and abuse of power. But more importantly, it illustrates the systemic failures that allow such behavior to persist. This isn't about one officer. It's about accountability at every level and the responsibility of institutions to protect, not intimidate, their communities. The reporter nodded, scribbling notes. And what do you want the public to take away? That harassment is never acceptable, Jasmine said steadily. That fear should not dictate behavior. That silence and indifference empower abuse. And that everyone, no matter their position, must be held accountable for their actions. Outside, pedestrians passed by the office, some glancing in as cameras rolled, others unaware of the historic weight of the moment unfolding inside. Meanwhile, Hawthorne paced his office, phone in hand. His colleagues had warned him the footage was circulating beyond the city. National coverage was not far off. The realization struck him. His sense of control had evaporated. For the first time, he could no longer rely solely on authority or fear to manipulate perception. He slammed his hand on the desk, muttering under his breath, This can't be happening. She's just a courier. She's... A colleague hesitated. She's the owner of Maple Express. Hawthorne froze, the words hanging in the air like a physical weight. His mind raced, the arrogance that had defined him for years clashing violently with the reality he could no longer ignore. Back at Maple Express, Jasmine returned to the office. Her deliveries complete. The phone notifications continued to buzz, but she felt a rare sense of clarity. The exposure was real. The scrutiny was public, and the system protecting Hawthorne was being challenged in plain sight. She glanced around the office. Her team worked efficiently, calmly, documenting every call, every in. The courtroom smelled faintly of polished wood and anxiety. Jasmine Harper walked in with measured steps. Her uniform replaced by a tailored blazer, the symbols of her authority subtle but unmistakable. She carried herself with the calm assurance of someone who had documented every interaction, every threat, every moment of harassment. Today wasn't about spectacle. It was about accountability. Inside, Officer Daniel Hawthorne sat stiffly in the defendant's chair, hands clasped tightly, jaw set. His arrogance was diminished, replaced by an undercurrent of tension that even his attempt at composure couldn't conceal. For once, the badge he had wielded like a shield felt heavy, fragile, meaningless under the weight of evidence, witnesses, and public scrutiny. The judge, a middle-aged African-American woman with sharp eyes and an authoritative presence, tapped her gavel. We are convened regarding complaint filed against Officer Daniel Hawthorne. Ms. Harper, please present your case. Jasmine stepped forward, calm, her voice even but carrying a quiet intensity. Your Honor, this case is not merely about a single incident. It is about a pattern of harassment, intimidation, and abuse of authority by Officer Hawthorne, both on the streets and within institutional frameworks designed to protect the public. His repeated targeting of myself and my employees constitutes harassment and racial profiling, documented and witnessed multiple times over the past several months. Hawthorne's jaw tightened. He leaned forward slightly, whispering to his attorney, but the room was hushed enough for Jasmine to hear. She's exaggerating. She can't prove all of this. Jasmine's eyes flicked briefly toward him, calm but piercing. Exaggeration does not withstand the weight of documentation. Your Honor, witnesses have come forward. Video evidence exists. Reports filed with HR and Internal Affairs have been ignored, demonstrating systemic negligence. This is not anecdotal. This is verifiable. This is real. The judge nodded, motioning for her to continue. Proceed. Jasmine turned slightly, gesturing toward the gallery where several Maple Express employees sat, each holding copies of reports, statements, and documentation. These individuals have witnessed harassment firsthand. They have endured a workplace where intimidation was normalized and fear was weaponized. Today, we expose not just the actions of one man, but the systems that allowed them to persist. A young employee stood, his hand shaking slightly, voice quiet but clear. Your Honor, I've seen him stop Ms. Harper repeatedly on the streets, questioning deliveries, using threats, and implying she should be afraid. I've seen her remain professional, even when others would have faltered. It's not just unfair, it's targeted. It's intentional. Hawthorne shifted in his seat, irritation flickering across his face. That's misleading. I was performing my duty. You were performing your duty, Jasmine interjected smoothly, while exploiting a bias that allowed you to intimidate without accountability. Duty does not excuse harassment. Authority does not justify prejudice. And a badge does not make intimidation lawful. The courtroom murmured softly. Journalists scribbled notes. Cameras flashed briefly. The air was thick with tension, charged by the collision of arrogance and evidence, power and accountability. Hawthorne's attorney rose. Your Honor, while we acknowledge that the video exists, it captures only a fragment of the interaction. My client acted within protocol. Any perceived intimidation is unintentional. Jasmine's eyes narrowed slightly. Unintentional? Threatening words, repeated stops, biased targeting, documented over time, cannot be accidental. The pattern demonstrates deliberate misuse of authority. Your Honor, the evidence is consistent. It is verifiable. It is undeniable. The judge leaned forward, her eyes locked on Hawthorne. Do you deny the incidents as documented? Hawthorne hesitated, then shook his head. I did what I thought was proper. I didn't intend. Intent does not erase impact, Jasmine said firmly, each word deliberate, cutting through the courtroom like a blade. Impact is measurable. Fear, intimidation, public humiliation, these are tangible consequences. And when repeated, they constitute abuse. That is not speculation. That is fact. The judge nodded slowly, tapping her gavel. Proceed with the witness testimony. Several Maple Express employees gave detailed accounts, each story reinforcing the pattern Jasmine had described. Stops during deliveries, condescending comments, threats veiled as questions, microaggressions escalating to overt intimidation. The video played again, showing Hawthorne's red face, his hands gesturing aggressively, his voice sharp and dismissive. Jasmine's testimony remained composed, her words clear, her demeanor unshakable. Your Honor, Officer Hawthorne's repeated actions violated trust, law, and ethical standards. Every attempt to silence witnesses, dismiss complaints, or minimize his behavior has been documented. This is systemic, deliberate, and harmful. Hawthorne's face flushed, a combination of frustration and fear. His hands fidgeted, gripping the edge of the table. For the first time, he seemed small, vulnerable, exposed not by strength or courage, but by meticulous preparation and undeniable truth. The judge turned toward him. Officer Hawthorne, you have been given every opportunity to provide evidence to refute these claims. Yet the documentation, witness accounts, and video evidence collectively demonstrate harassment and intimidation. How do you respond? Hawthorne opened his mouth, then closed it. The courtroom was silent, waiting. His ego, built over years of unquestioned authority, was crumbling under the weight of scrutiny. Jasmine, standing tall, addressed him directly. Authority does not grant impunity. A badge does not shield you from accountability. And arrogance cannot withstand truth when it is documented, witnessed, and shared. You chose to exploit bias, to intimidate, to assume power over those you deemed weaker. Today, you face the consequence of those choices. The judge nodded, the gavel tapping lightly. The evidence is clear. Your actions violated both departmental standards and public trust. Sanctions will follow, including suspension pending further review and mandatory retraining. Further consequences may be considered depending on the outcome of ongoing investigations. Hawthorne's face drained the color. His sense of control had evaporated. The viral clip, the documentation, the witnesses, all meticulously prepared and strategically presented, had dismantled the foundation of his arrogance. Jasmine exhaled softly, tension leaving her shoulders. The courtroom buzzed with quiet recognition. The balance of power had shifted decisively. She had not raised her voice. She had not resorted to spectacle. She had simply presented truth, measured, deliberate, undeniable. Elaine, sitting in the gallery, whispered to a colleague, "She's incredible." The way she handled it, calm, composed, commanding respect without yelling or dramatics. Jasmine's phone buzzed quietly in her pocket, a reminder that the world outside continued to watch. Notifications from media outlets, social media shares, and public commentary streamed in, but inside the courtroom, the focus was singular. Justice achieved, at least for the moment. As the hearing concluded, report. By dawn, the city was buzzing with whispers of the court hearing. Jasmine Harper's name trended across news platforms and social media feeds. The viral clip, now coupled with her calm, composed courtroom testimony, had sparked a conversation that extended far beyond Maple Express or Officer Hawthorne. Inside the office, Maple Express employees were already at work, the hum of printers and scanners mingling with the distant rumble of traffic outside. The atmosphere was tense but energized. Everyone knew the world was watching. Elaine Carter hurried to Jasmine's side, holding her tablet like a shield against the incoming storm. "Look at this," she said, scrolling rapidly. Articles, op-eds, community forums. People are discussing systemic harassment in law enforcement. They're talking about accountability, bias, and institutional failures. It's overwhelming. Jasmine leaned over, eyes scanning headlines. It's not overwhelming. It's necessary. Momentum is built on awareness, and awareness forces institutions to act. The ripple spreads not because we want attention, but because the truth can't be contained. A junior courier, still holding the morning schedule, whispered hesitantly, "Miss Harper, people outside, strangers, they're contacting the company. They want to volunteer, donate, support us, even just send letters of encouragement." Jasmine nodded. "We'll acknowledge them, but carefully. Every interaction is part of the narrative. The story must remain factual, precise, and credible. Emotional reactions are powerful, but they must be guided." Across town, Hawthorne sat in his small apartment, the weight of the previous hearing pressing down on him. News alerts pinged constantly. Comments on social media dissected his every move, his every word, his every gesture. The viral clip had evolved into a symbol of accountability, and he was at the center of it, not as a hero, but as a cautionary figure. One of his former colleagues called nervously, "Danny, people are really paying attention. HR, the press, even local officials. You're trending in a way that's bad." Hawthorne slammed his hand on the kitchen table. "I followed procedure. I was doing my job." She's building evidence," the colleague said cautiously. "And now the public sees it. You're exposed." The words cut deeper than any reprimand could. For the first time, he felt vulnerable in ways he had never imagined. Authority and badge could not shield him from exposure. Public scrutiny was relentless, and momentum had a weight of its own. Back at Maple Express, Jasmine convened a brief meeting with key staff. "The exposure's real," she said, voice calm but carrying authority. "Momentum has shifted, but we cannot become complacent. Every delivery, every client interaction, every response to inquiries matters. We must maintain professionalism while the ripple grows. And we must be ready for those who attempt to undermine our credibility." Elaine interjected, her tone anxious. "They've already started. There are comments online questioning your motives, the company's involvement, even your ownership. Some are calling it a stunt." Jasmine's expression remained steady. Every narrative can be challenged, but the truth withstands scrutiny. Facts, evidence, witnesses, they are unassailable. Let them speculate. We proceed with integrity. Meanwhile, local news channels broadcast the story repeatedly, highlighting Jasmine's testimony, the viral clip, and the broader implications for law enforcement practices. Interviews with Maple Express employees underscored the systemic nature of the harassment, illustrating patterns that were once invisible to the public. The sun had barely risen over the city, and Maple Express was already alive with movement. Couriers loaded trucks. Phones rang, and the smell of coffee mingled with a faint tang of cardboard and paper labels. Today felt different. There was an energy in the air, a sense of accomplishment that wasn't boastful but quietly triumphant. Jasmine Harper stood near the front desk, observing controlled chaos. The viral clip, "Courtroom Victory," and subsequent ripple effects had brought more than public scrutiny. They had brought recognition, validation, and systemic acknowledgement. The work she had done to expose harassment and abuse of power was now reflected in the tangible respect of her employees and community. Elaine Carter approached her, eyes shining with quiet admiration. "Jasmine's incredible. The press, city officials, even local advocacy groups, they're praising Maple Express. They're calling it a model for ethical leadership and workplace integrity." Jasmine gave a small, measured smile. "It's not about praise, Elaine. It's about accountability. It's about showing that courage and integrity can create real change. Today, people are seeing that actions have consequences, and systems respond when confronted with truth." A young courier, still catching her breath after morning route, approached nervously. "Miss Harper, they're recognizing the employees, too. Local media came by to interview some of us about what happened, about the harassment. They want to highlight how we stood together." Jasmine nodded, her gaze softening. "You all did more than stand together. You documented, supported each other, and maintained professionalism in the face of intimidation. That is what's being recognized. Not just me, but all of you, every delivery, every witness statement, every calm response under pressure, that's integrity in action. At that moment, a reporter stepped into the office, camera crew in tow. Ms. Harper, congratulations. The City Council just passed new guidelines to prevent harassment during deliveries and improve accountability for officers. What's your reaction? Jasmine straightened, calm but assertive. This is a step forward, yes, but it's not the end. Policies are only as strong as the people who enforce them. Accountability must continue at every level. My hope is that this incident becomes a lesson, not just for one officer or one company, but for the city and every institution that handles authority and oversight. The reporter nodded, scribbling notes. And personally, how do you feel after everything that happened? Jasmine allowed herself a small breath, acknowledging the weight of the journey. Relieved, but more importantly, determined. Relieved that justice is moving forward, and determined that the conversation continues. That no one else faces harassment without consequence, that integrity is valued over fear, and that people understand the power of documentation, courage, and collective action. Months had passed since the viral clip first circulated, since the courtroom confrontation, and since the ripple of accountability began sweeping through the city. Maple Express hummed with the steady rhythm of business, but the air now carried a quiet sense of pride, resilience, and purpose. Deliveries were no longer just tasks. They were statements of integrity, professionalism, and courage. Jasmine Harper stood at the front office window, observing her team moving efficiently through parcels and schedules. Sunlight caught the edges of the trucks parked outside, glinting off the Maple Express logo she had built from the ground up. The battles of the past months, the harassment, the legal maneuvering, the public scrutiny, felt distant now, yet their impact was undeniable. Elaine Carter approached, holding a tablet with news updates. Jasmine City Council has finalized a new ordinance on delivery safety and employee protection. They've even mandated anti-bias and de-escalation training for officers citywide. Your story is cited in the official documentation as a catalyst. Jasmine's eyes softened. It's not about me. It's about the couriers, the employees, the city. This is systemic change. Policies are only words unless people enforce them, but at least now there's accountability embedded into law. One of the young couriers, Sarah, approached with a folder in hand. Ms. Harper, look, community organizations are offering workshops and collaboration opportunities from Maple Express. They want a partner to teach employees about their rights, conflict management, and reporting harassment. Jasmine nodded, pride threading through her calm exterior. That's the point. Knowledge is power. Empower employees can protect themselves, their colleagues, and the community. That's lasting change. Meanwhile, in a dim precinct office, Officer Daniel Hawthorne sat across from internal affairs investigators. His suspension had been extended, and the investigation into prior incidents intensified. He was no longer untouchable, no longer shielded by arrogance, and no longer the intimidating figure he once believed himself to be. Mr. Hawthorne, the investigator said, voice firm, your repeated harassment and documented abuse of authority have had consequences. Beyond suspension, further disciplinary actions, including termination, are under review. You've been made an example intentionally to prevent future incidents of this nature. Do you understand the gravity of the situation? Hawthorne swallowed hard, the weight of months of exposure pressing down on him. Yes, I understand, he murmured, though his pride still flickered weakly in his eyes. Authority had been stripped, reputation damaged, and arrogance confronted by accountability. Back at Maple Express, Jasmine convened a brief team meeting. The changes in policy, the partnerships, and the awareness are all tangible steps, but they are only the beginning. Our work continues. We set the standard for accountability in our industry, and we maintain it every day. That is our responsibility now. Elaine nodded. And the public response. People are continuing to share your story, highlight the systemic issues, and celebrate the integrity of Maple Express. It's inspiring others to speak up. Jasmine smiled faintly, thinking of the viral clip that had started it all. Courage is contagious. The ripple we began is no longer just ours. It belongs to the city, the employees, the communities that demand fairness. That's the most important legacy we can leave. Sarah raised her hand tentatively. Miss Harper, do you think officers will change? I mean, really change?